We made this.
Welcome to the November edition of Back to the Decade, the podcast where we rewind 10 years and reflect on pop culture of the time. I'm Thomas Adams, joined by Nick Hoffman.
What's up?
What is going on, Nick? It is our November episode. We're recording the day before Thanksgiving because nothing like getting it in last minute.
Oh man, is that this week?
Is that what's going on this week? Hard to believe that we're here already. It's been a long year, as everyone knows, but we are almost to the end of our 2010. I mean, what, like our list of stuff to cover that we talked about doing 8 months ago, and now we're talking today about a couple more Oscar nominees from that year, King's Speech and 127 Hours. But
yeah,
it's been a good year. We've watched a lot of really great things.
Yeah, we kind of started at the beginning of the pandemic, and I guess we're gonna end it still in the pandemic.
Yeah,
and hopefully by first quarter next year, when we're talking about the shitty movies that came out in 2011 and January and February, maybe things will be getting better.
A little more optimistic.
Yeah.
I think I've not gone back and listened in forever, but I imagine if I listened to our March recording, there was a lot of unwarranted optimism during that session where we were like, oh, by June, July, things will be good and we'll be seeing some stuff again maybe. And
I 100% thought like shit was going to be back to normal by June.
Right.
Yeah.
That was our mindset, let alone by freaking the holidays. Here we are. And I imagine I was at least expecting by Christmas time, we'd be back in movie theaters and watching the things we love again, having stuff to talk about. But alas, we're still here. We do have more optimism now than we did at the start. There's finally, maybe a light at the end of the tunnel with these successful vaccine trials, but it's all a waiting game.
Yeah, I was telling Kat the other day, I was like, man, I usually the week of Thanksgiving or once Christmas approaches, I usually get most of that week off, right? You're like, all right, I'm off work. Good reason to drink on a Tuesday or Wednesday with friends, like reminisce, maybe meet up with some old buddies. And this week, since I've been unemployed personally since the end of May, I'm like, wow, it just feels like just another week. I don't know. And I've been trying every single week to not drink that much until the weekend, because every week I'm just, I have the days off. I mean, luckily we have little Lizzie taking care of her during the day, so that helps. But yeah, really this year, Thanksgiving 2020, just unfortunately just feels like another week.
Yeah, the babies have at least come along to give us a purpose for this year outside of just sitting around at home with our spouses, but it definitely doesn't feel normal, but still thankful nonetheless for the positive things we have had in 2020, even though it's not been perfect.
Yeah, I saw some kind of meme or something, I think it was earlier today, that said something like 2020 was supposed to be the year where I got everything I wanted, but instead it's the year where I realize I'm thankful for everything I have. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it said. That's really nice. That's true.
Yeah, that's pretty poetic.
Yeah, very, absolutely thankful for
it. Really forces you to consider the bare necessities and just be content with it. But that's not the purpose of our show. Our show is to talk about 10 years ago, which was a simpler time. at least in our recollection. It's always like I feel like hindsight always makes the past seem better. I remember thinking 2016 was like the worst fucking year. Like, between that particular election did not go the way that I wanted personally, and I think a lot of people felt the same way. And there was just, I don't know, there was just so much. I remember thinking in 2016, God, this year sucks. I can't wait to just move on and move forward. And then you get hit with a year like this one, and boy, does it put things into perspective. 2016 feels freaking amazing looking back at it. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you have the darkest part of 2016, which was Trump coming into office, and now he's exiting, hopefully, maybe, and we're still as sad as ever because of this terrible pandemic we're going through.
He's without dwelling on it too much. We recorded the last episode about a week before the election. That was a very stressful night. I remember going to bed with the feeling that things were unfolding in a sense of deja vu, because I had a very similar feeling in my gut. But thank God for mail-in voting, because that came in over the course of the next several days.
Which I mailed my vote in. Well, no, I mean, absentee ballot, and then Kat and I and Lizzie, we walked to our courthouse in Decatur and dropped it in the ballot box.
You and your spouse became one of those valuable DeKalb County mail-in votes that piled in to swing the state of Georgia for the first time in 28 years or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, by about Thursday, it kind of looked like Joe Biden was going to win, and then Saturday, they officially called it on the networks, and Atlanta was a party, man. Like, fireworks, parades, people being incredibly unsafe in the midst of a global pandemic, but having fun nonetheless. And it was just
they were wearing masks.
They were wearing masks.
They were wearing masks.
It was just a sight to see, though. And for that one day, it felt like there was hope again, at least in our city. I know that our city skews very Democratic because it's a lot of younger people, urban people, however you want to describe it. But that was a good day. And there was just this sense of joy that I think the community felt that was refreshing. And I hope that, I'm at least hopeful that that persists. I know that there's been a lot of contesting of the results and just bullshit nonsense that is just noise. Ultimately, that's all it will be, but kind of puts a damper on things.
Yeah, I'm just so ready to get out of this year and move on. Move on.
All we can do is hope for a better tomorrow. But
just like what we should do now and go back to the decade.
I was just gonna say we'll hope for a better tomorrow, but in the meantime, we'll dwell on yesterday.
Yeah,
metaphorically speaking. 2010, November 2010. We're gonna talk about 3 movies today. One of them will be a bit shorter than the other 2. We're talking about Tony Scott's Unstoppable, and then, like I said earlier, 127 Hours and The King's Speech, both Oscar nominees for Best Picture. The King's Speech ultimately won Best Picture and kind of swept a lot of awards, director, actor, all kinds of stuff, which we'll talk about. But I think
what did you say? I'm sorry, I fell asleep. What did you say about King's Speech?
It's a very Oscar baity movie. It's not really surprising that they went for something like it, but I enjoy it. I think. No,
I'm kidding. I mean,
I like the film.
I did too. I had to.
Let's talk real quick though, before we get into that, because I'm sure that those 2 Oscar movies will be a longer discussion. We'll talk real quick about Unstoppable.
I'm Will Coulson. We're working together today.
All right. This ain't training. In training, they just give you an F. Out here, you get killed.
1206, there's an unmanned train on the northbound track.
Just come coming straight at us.
That train's carrying toxic chemicals. We're talking about a missile the size of the Chrysler building.
So right now, chase it down in reverse. A train that size going that speed, it'll vaporize anything in front of it.
We have been told to anticipate an event radius of 45 miles.
Nothing's wrong. Just tell your sister I love you both. We got a real chance to stop this thing. Pick it up speed. Go, go, go! What the hell? Just lost our brakes!
Unstoppable, I had not seen until this year. I think you and I both watched this early on in 2020, pretty much before we had even decided to do this podcast. I think because they covered this on the Rewatchables podcast with Quentin Tarantino. This was one of his choices for a movie he wanted to discuss. So
Yeah,
for that purpose, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I had never seen it, so like you were saying, that it made me want to go watch it.
I had heard about it, but I didn't really think anything of it. I thought it was just some hokey action movie. And then when I heard Tarantino speaking so highly of it, I was like, I gotta check this out. If this is
he
as
he
good
put
as
it on
everyone
what
says it is.
He put it on his like top 10 of the decade, right? Is that?
I think so. I don't know if it was top 10, but it was definitely up there in terms
because
of
he
his
did
favorites.
Yeah, he did Dunkirk. He did. Oh, you know what? Yeah. Well, I don't remember if it had anything to do with the decade. Maybe it didn't. Two of them were the decade, and then they did like The King of New York or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, they talked about this movie Unstoppable, which is a tight action thriller about a runaway train that's just like, what is it, in Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very loosely based on a real story.
Yeah, very, very loosely based on a true story. Some of the events I would have a hard time imagining have any truth to them. But this is a movie that I don't know. I love it a lot. I think it's super fun. It had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I don't think it was particularly special in any way. It's just a really great time.
I mean, dude.
Yeah.
We could talk, if we're going to talk about anything about the movie, it'd be Tony Scott. I mean, that guy was an incredible director. Gone too soon.
For sure.
And the editing in that film and like most of his films, it's so fast paced. I can't remember. I know I read some statistic, and I'm sure they mentioned it in Rewatchables about like the amount of cuts, the amount of edits they make in the film, or like how the amount of time that passes in each frame. It's like 2 or 3 seconds, until it cuts again and cuts again and cuts again. It's just so well paced. It's so
right,
and that's what makes it such an entertaining movie. And just like most of Tony Scott's films, Man on Fire, and then you go back to like True Romance.
Mm-hmm.
Days of Thunder. I mean, my God.
Guy.
Oh, and also one of my personal favorites as well, which is not as popular for more people, but The Last Boy Scout. Just such an awesome director, and the way he brings actors together to act in scene by scene, just the chemistry is always on point. Was it Domino's another one? My God, Domino's. That movie is insane with the edits.
I'm thinking Enemy of the State is another one.
Enemy of the State. I mean, So Unstoppable is just another example of the greatness that was the legend of Tony Scott. And I mean,
and it's his last movie too, which is
was it the last one?
It's his final film.
I didn't even realize that.
Which is
wow.
I think it's a definitely an appropriate final movie for him. He works with Denzel, which is one of his guys. They obviously collaborate a number of times. And it's no surprise that Denzel Washington is charismatic, but he pairs him with Chris Pine, who at the time is relatively fresh on the scene. I think Star Trek had come out 1 year before or something like that. And he wasn't much of a star at the time Unstoppable comes out.
He's a bit of a wild card, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, he's become one of my favorites because I think, much like Denzel, he also has a charisma to him that is just pretty magnetic. He's such a charming actor. He really finds a way to get you on board with his character no matter what the circumstance is. And in Unstoppable, it's no different, where you have the vet who's on the verge of being forced into retirement, essentially, and like the new guy that's just trying to work his job, and they have rivaling ideologies. They don't agree. They don't get along necessarily, but this crazy shit happens, and all of a sudden they got to work together and reconcile their differences, and all of that stuff about this movie works. It's just like you said, it's so quick paced. And I think that's the thing that I applaud the most about it, is just how well it uses its 90 minutes. Because, I love a quick 90-minute movie, and this definitely gets the most out of every second, I feel like.
Yeah, I ended up watching it way early on in the pandemic. I did like a 7-day free trial at Cinemax or something, and I watched it. Kat and I watched it at like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It was just totally random and highly enjoyable, and just as soon as it begins, it ends, and you're like, oh, okay, it was a pretty fun movie.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where you don't even realize how into it you are until something happens that makes you go, oh shit. like freaking Chris Pine, I forget what exactly he does that gets his foot all fucked, but he like jumps from train car to train car, and just ridiculous stunt work that involves driving a truck from like the front of the train to the back of the train, like jumping out of it.
And Chris Pine did all the stunts himself, I believe. He's like a Tom Cruise in that sense. I think I read that or heard that.
It's a really cool stunt that that entire final 15-20 minutes is really well done, like any Mission Impossible type action sequence. I feel like. And
going back to Tony Scott, maybe we should like end it here with Tony Scott, but like True Romance is maybe in my top 10. I think it's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Really? Okay.
And when I was first getting into movies, that was one of those films that like just really struck me in my core. And then of course Days of Thunder, and I mean we all grew up with Top Gun, and
right.
I just think it's amazing. I had no idea that was his last movie. I'm not sure why I didn't know what his last movie was, but because his death was just like so sudden and unpredictable. But he was just a force of nature in film that could never ever be replicated. He's a one of a kind filmmaker, and Unstoppable was kind of like just a smorgasbord of his greatness. So.
Right, and I mean the whole Tarantino of it all comes full circle, because of course Tarantino wrote True Romance.
Yep.
And then heralded Unstoppable and how much he loved that movie.
Yeah.
So it is kind of cool to see the inner workings of those filmmakers and how their work kind of speaks to each other.
So yeah, anyone who hasn't seen Unstoppable, it's about a runaway train, literally. It's all you need to know. Highly recommend. It's a fun movie. All right, let's move on from one Brit to another.
Although, am I wrong about that? Tony Scott's a Brit, right?
Oh man, I don't.
Yeah, he is.
Well,
he is.
he?
His
Okay.
because his brother's Ridley, and
Mm-hmm.
Ridley's as Brit as it comes. Another Brit. We're talking about Danny Boyle and 127 Hours.
Good morning, everyone. It's 7 o'clock in Canyonland, USA. Hey there, Aaron. Is it true you didn't tell anyone where you were going? Oops. Oops. 127 Hours. A true story of survival against all odds. Rated R. Only in theaters.
I'm pretty positive both of us had that movie in our top 5 of 2010 when we were. Maybe I didn't have it, but I know it's a movie we both are very high on from 2010. It's Oscar nominated Best Picture, James Franco Best Actor. It's really a tour de force for him because the whole entire movie is more or less his face as he goes through, based on a true story of a guy being trapped between a canyon, his arm stuck in a rock for 127 hours.
I mean, it doesn't get any more truer, really, as far as like being based on a true story, because Aaron Ralston, who the character is based, I mean, it's who James Franco plays.
His story, yeah.
I mean, well, and he recorded a lot of it, as you see in the movie. Like he recorded all this footage on his little recorder, and then he like literally passed all that footage on to James Franco so he could watch it, study it, and then replicate it in the movie. So, I mean, you know, a lot of movies are, you know, like, okay, this is a great segue, right? Unstoppable, based on a true story. Unstoppable is like very exaggerated in the film part of it, right?
Yeah.
I don't even think it didn't even take place in the same, like, what in Pennsylvania in the movie. It took place somewhere else, I think, or vice versa. But like in 127 Hours, like this shit is about as accurate as you can get for the situation that Aaron Ralston was in.
Well, and Ralston's talked about it too, because you have something like, take Social Network, for example, what we talked about last episode. That's a true story that's just dealing with so many various accounts of incidents and how those unfolded. 127 Hours is just that man's experience. Like that's the story being told. It's the experience that he had. And he's said in interviews that for him, it could basically be a documentary because the movie so perfectly captures what his experience was, which I think is a testament to why it's so good, because it feels so real and lived in.
Yeah, and then we have another great director in Danny Boyle. And also, man, I guess 2010 was just a great year for fucking soundtracks, man, for scores, musical scores, because I know last month we talked about Social Network and Trent Reznor, and now in 127 Hours we have A.R. Rahman and that incredible score of his, and also just the soundtrack in general. You know, it took some songs like Bill Weathers' "Lovely Day" and
great music choices.
Yeah, man, just the beginning. I mean, I had kind of forgotten the way that movie starts with dun, 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 whatever that cover is. It's so good. And then you have all these, like, you know, as Danny Boyle loves to do, he loves to split the screen, and you get over here on the left is like a crowd of just people in the city, and then in the middle is a crowd of people at a festival, and then on the right is a crowd of people at a sports game, and just kind of like showing what everyone else is doing in the world while this one man is just like just
trapped under a rock.
Yeah, and just going out and literally only caring about himself and just concerned about himself and his adventures and what his next move is going to be. And you know, also the editing is just with John Harris, you know, his editing is incredible in this film. And Yeah, I mean, oof,
It's
powerful
pretty
movie.
it's pretty great the way that all comes full circle in terms of like you were talking about Danny Boyle's techniques in terms of splitting the screen and providing those different perspectives, and how he uses that as the movie progresses to disorient the viewer, kind of recreate that feeling Aaron is going through where he's losing his mind a bit. He's going through starvation and extreme thirst. And it kind of, not to jump ahead of ourselves too much, but it ends with a lot of spliced imagery of Franco with the real Aaron Ralston. You're seeing a lot of Aaron's actual life and the adventures that he would go on to have after this crazy experience, this near-death experience of his. And you kind of get Franco in there, and it just kind of splices together that fiction from the reality and blurs those lines in a way that I find really interesting and powerful. Like you said, it helps contribute to that heavily emotional conclusion of one man's insane will to simply survive. And
It's unbelievable.
And to see at the end of the film what he is able to get out of it. Like, I'm sure, his life probably isn't perfect. I'm sure he's had a lot of PTSD from what he went through. He's probably struggled, especially now as an amputee, but to just see him still embracing life and still, at the time of the film's release, he was married. I know he's not anymore. They're since divorced, but he has a son now. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I did a little research after.
Yeah, you always get the information that I don't know. I don't know these things. That's interesting. I had no idea. Okay, well, I mean, it makes sense though, right? Because that was kind of him in the movie too, right? He's had with connection with other humans, right? I mean, he's just
right.
He had his great girlfriend he was clearly in love with, but to connect with her on an emotional level for him was very, very difficult. And I imagine that would be really hard on any woman that is, or maybe trying to be
married to him.
Yeah, that man. It's not just him. And there's a lot of men out there like that. There's a lot of women out there like that. It's the same.
Right.
It goes both ways. It's just, yeah, man. Like people like him. It's like, and it's a great line in the beginning of the movie, and when it kind of sets up before he gets trapped with the Rock, when he meets those two girls. And I love this actress, and she always shows up in stuff.
Are you thinking of Kate Mara?
Yes, exactly, Kate Mara.
Yeah.
So her character says, her friend that she's with says, you liked him, didn't you? And you think he's going to show up to our party? And she's like, yeah, I don't think we factor into his day at all. And it says it's true, right? And like that's every day for that man. He's just looking for the next big adventure, and
he beats to his own drum.
Yep.
But I actually love the inclusion of those two girls in the story. Like I'm sure it's pretty factually accurate that he had some sort of interaction with some hikers.
No, it is.
Earlier that day. But in terms of it could have been, it probably would have been easy to just have him go to the canyon and then show the entire incident with him being trapped. But that 15 minutes we get before he gets trapped in the rock gives us it gives us a perspective into the kind of person he is socially that I think really adds a lot of value into what we see him go through as he's struggling so much to simply find the will to live. His regrets over inability to connect with people, whether it be his parents or his sister or his ex-girlfriend. And for him to have video of this recent interaction with these two girls as this reminder of, basically your selfishness, your unwillingness to share your life with other people, basically is what has gotten you into this situation, and like what a stupid moron you are for giving up this beautiful woman that obviously is like flirting with you and wanted to be with you, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go on my merry way and see you guys later.
Rock on.
Right.
Yeah, so this is one of those, again, and 2010 was the year I was starting to get comfortable watching or going to the movie theater by myself and watching movies, because so I did the same thing with Black Swan, which we talked about last month. Mm-hmm. And similar situation with 127 Hours. Actually, I remember it very, very well. I saw this movie at the Terra in Atlanta, here, in the city, and I went just by myself. I really wanted to see it. I knew the story of Aaron Ralston, and I obviously had good buzz. And I remember sitting in the theater. It was like me and like maybe, I don't know, 8 other people, and I was immediately engrossed because, again, Danny Boyle is directing, and the editing was so good. The soundtrack, again, is so good. And there's a couple moments in this film that still stand out to me to this day. And like rewatching it again, because I had this movie on DVD. I bought it the moment it came out because it was one of my favorite movies at the time. And still to this day, this movie has like two moments that really just I think about often enough, like every year of my life, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. Mm-hmm. If I hear that Bill Withers song, Lovely Day, a lovely day, loving it. That's when it's a moment in the film where Aaron gets like, this energy, this burst of energy. She's like, all right, let's go. I'm going to like chip away at this rock. I'm going to get out of it, like loosen this rock up, get my hand back, and like, I'm going to get it out of here. And he's all pumped up, full of energy, like, yeah, all right. And that starts with that Bill Withers song. Bill Withers also recently, this year, passed away, sadly. And so, yeah, it goes, and then it's positive. But then, the worry kicks in, right? The fear, the anxiety kicks in. And he starts remembering how thirsty he is. He doesn't have much water left. And he remembers that Gatorade he's got back in his truck that's a few miles away. And his mind just goes to that after, like, however long he was feeling positive. Now he's back to the negativity. And then he starts thinking about, like, all the incredible things that he craves in life, like sodas and beer. And it's like a commercial, right? It's like a commercial for, Taco Bell or whatever, man. It's just like, and then it goes through that homage of just like delicious things that we all love and enjoy in life. That moment is just so good, man. And again, the way it's edited to the music, it just like still to this day. I mean, I like couldn't wait for that moment to pop up in the movie. And then after that would be the end of the film when he finally gets away from the rock after he cuts his arm off, and he rappels down and gets the dirty water and drinks the water. And he is like on his hands and knees, basically. He can barely walk anymore. And he finally sees some tourists across the way, and he can't even talk. He's like, it's like you're in a bad dream where it's like, when you want to speak in a dream and you're just like, you can't let words out. And he finally has enough strength inside of him. Like, I don't know how the hell this dude was able to carry on this long with so little water and food, but he finally like is able to scream help. And then again, that score, man, by Rahman, man, that like just it's like raining down on the movie itself and the narrative, and him screaming help, and
people start running,
helping him. The tourists helping him like get water and food, and there's another tourist couple that help, give him water, and finally, and I still choke up right there, man. I still like tears, emotion. I mean, those 2 moments from this movie. I mean, it's like 2 of my favorite cinematic experiences of the century. Big movie for me.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the head with that ending sequence and the way it kind of crescendos and builds on top of itself. The score picks up, and progresses from like one tourist to another and one source of help to another, it is incredibly overwhelming emotionally. And I remember the first time I saw it, I felt that way. And then this morning was the second time I had watched it, and it was the same thing, where it's impossible to not get emotional over survival, like just the pure will to survive, the pure will to live, especially in a year like this one where so many of us, I think, have struggled to identify those things that keep us going in the face of so much hardship, where we kind of question, like, where are the things for us to cling to for positivity? And he obviously found it, otherwise he wouldn't have made it through all those days in such a difficult situation. But it builds to that image, and I think it's my favorite image of the movie, and one that makes me teary-eyed every time. The helicopter comes, like you were saying, and it builds to the pool sequence where they're swimming, and just it's Franco swimming and he's got his nub, and then it's the real Aaron Ralston swimming and you see his nub, and it kind of like cuts and cuts and cuts, and then he gets out of the pool and there's his family sitting there on the couch, and they're all there, and it's his the son that he had envisioned down in the canyon, the one he didn't have yet. And he's said in interviews that was what basically told him, I have to cut off I have to amputate my arm, because he had this vision of a boy that he didn't know, but he knew in his gut that this is my child. I'm going to have a child one day, and I have to survive so that this child can be. And it hit a little bit differently this time than it did 10 years ago, now that we're actually parents ourselves. And we've experienced, that incomparable feeling of bringing life into this world, and just the pure admiration that comes from staring into the eyes of this thing that you've created, and to like watch this movie again and see that as the thing that propelled him forward. It elevated it for me even more, I would say, than even the last time I had seen it. And it affected me the last time I saw it too, but it just it hits you in different ways depending on where you are in your life, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I felt the same thing. As like you said, it definitely holds up, and it's a story of survival, but not only that, but like a story of becoming a father. Something that at the time he clearly had no intention on being, or interest in being a father. So yeah, like that's a pretty powerful thing to have a premonition like that. And 3-4 years later, after he ended up getting off that rock, it's like, wow. I mean, it happened too.
It came true. He had a son.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's. Well, we'll wrap up. I'll mention a couple of technical things. Franco's performance is incredibly impressive, and I always have liked James Franco. He's not someone like, we talked about DiCaprio this year, who's someone where like I'm just there for him every single time. But with Franco, I think this is undoubtedly my favorite of his performances. I think he really commands the screen for the entire time. And I was
going to say this and Pineapple Express, but yeah, go on.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different role. Pineapple Express. It's like another one of my all-time favorite. It's one of my all-time favorite comedies, but yeah.
Well, he is such a gifted comedic actor as well. But
it is. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm not going to say Franco is canceled, because we are still in this.
He's marred by controversy.
He's like semi.
He's semi-canceled.
He made some weird decisions that has, he's sort of left the spotlight in the last couple of years. But I will say, Franco in this 127 Hours and Pineapple Express, like both Oscar-worthy performances. Now, let's not forget about Disaster Artist too. When she was that's when he got snubbed because of everything that was going on with the Me Too movement, and there were some stories about him that popped up. So,
and I liked Disaster Artist a lot. That was a movie that I remember personally being disappointed by, because the book that it's based off of is one of the most fascinating things I've ever read. And I had long been fascinated by The Room and the story of that movie and how it came to be. So I had read that book well before the idea of a film based on it even was talked about. And I was a little bit disappointed by that movie. So I wasn't necessarily outraged about him being snubbed or anything, but I think for 127 Hours, it's just like the perfect display of his charm. Like, we talked a lot about Chris Pine's charm, and he's just like a guy that's so charismatic that he can make anything work. But Franco, I do think, has this very specific energy to him that applies perfectly on like the right types of characters. And I think that they found one in Aaron Ralston that it matches what he's good at really well. And then you have a director like Danny Boyle who is using the same techniques that he does in movies like Trainspotting or Slumdog Millionaire. With this, it's really impressive to me how I never think this movie gets boring. Like, yes, it's short, but the movie never leaves the one location for... I actually clocked it today. It's about 17 minutes in when he gets trapped, and there's about 17 minutes left when he gets out. So for a 90-minute movie, we're talking about well over half of it is just stuck in that one location. And
his mind goes elsewhere. But
his mind goes elsewhere. But it's the way that Boyle, like you were saying, like the editing and a lot of the decisions in terms of shots, he does like a lot of exciting things with the camera, like going inside the water canister and showing these like very physical depictions of Aaron's limitations, like the little Swiss Army knife, the way that he even films so many of those camcorder sequences that they do a little like it's a talk show. They do like a mock talk show. I was going to bring
that up. It's so awesome.
It's such a great scene. I think it's maybe my favorite scene in the whole movie, that they kind of use the talk show audio. He like edits that over and creates that very real feel of the...
Yeah, you know what it reminded me of was it's like a Bruce Campbell kind of like Evil Dead sort of performance, like very he's lost his mind.
Right.
So at this point he's just like he's talking to himself, but he's created this like facade of an audience, and it's just and that to me I feel like is like Franco's, it's the best part of his performance in the film. Like, it's the most impressive, where he's like, he looks at the camera, he's like, huh? And it's just it's so good.
I agree. That's when you're really seeing him use his, like we said, he's a gifted comedic actor, and he's using that in that sequence to kind of
totally
sell those facial expressions and ease the tension and the oopsie, like
whoops,
you told nobody where you're going, and the audience is like, oh, it's just it's really well done. And even right down to some of the more grotesque elements of the film, like he's forced to drink his own urine. We see like very vivid shots of the water canister fill up with urine, and then the urine goes away, and it's the way that happens. And then, of course, before we finish, we have to talk about the amputation sequence.
I was about to say, the nerve was the worst part for me, where he has to cut through the nerve. Oh my god! And like the sound they used for that was perfect, because it was that like Oh my! It was like being at like a dentist, sawing at your tooth kind of sound. It was like
Right.
Because when we've all had that happen before, where we've hit a nerve or we've been cutting away where it just like hits a nerve in your finger, whether it's your finger, your arm, or anywhere on your body, leg, whatever, and like that is extremely painful, and to have to like watching him snap that shit, like it really, oh man, it gives me the.
It's such a tough. It is not for the faint of heart. I know that they had a lot of issues when this movie came out in terms of people like getting sick during that sequence, and it's bad. So I actually read they did the whole thing in one take. There was no redos, no nothing. They like one take is all it took for the entire amputation sequence, and it's so impressive the way that they splice it together to create just such a genuine. I don't know, like the performance feels genuine. I've myself never amputated a limb, but God, does it feels as difficult in the movie as you imagine it would in real life. Like it's not just a simple like slice gone. It's such a long and drawn out process to get himself free. And then there's that great shot when he's finally free of the limb, and the camera kind of stumbles back like he did. It like takes a couple steps, and you're just left staring at an image of The Rock with, you can see on the right hand side like the bloody guts of his right arm.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
And I love the fact that he like before he leaves, this Rock that's been holding his arm for days now, and he's on the verge of death. He's like, "Oh, let me turn around real quick and snap a picture."
You gotta snap a pic of it. It's gonna be a
so
story I'll tell someday.
And he did that, dude. He did that.
Yeah.
Like, there's legit like a picture where he like actually was like, "Oh, let me take a picture of this. Like, I don't remember this one." I mean,
well, the dude went back. Like I saw, I think it was like 2020 or something. They went back to the actual site, and like The Rock is still there, and like he's just like they're down there in the bottom of the canyon, and I'm like, I feel like I would never go back. If that happened to me, I'd be like, see you later, no fucking way. But it's a great movie about it's one of those stranger than fiction type tales where it's just such a unique story and experience that it's only fitting that it actually happened.
Yeah, and I would say one of the more accurate, based on a true story, films that's ever been made.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes it so good, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that one of our favorites probably could have won Best Picture over the film we're about to talk about, which actually did win Best Picture, The King's Speech.
War with Germany will come, and we will need a king whom we can all stand behind.
He's afraid of his own shadow.
The nation believes that when I speak, I speak for them, but I can't speak.
You could do it. You needn't be governed by fear.
It'll be like mad King George the Stammerer. Get up, you can't sit there, get up!
Why not? It's a chair.
That is St. Edward's chair.
People have carved their names on it.
Listen to me! Listen to me!
Why should I waste my time listening to you?
Because I have a voice!
Yes, you do.
Your greatest test is yet to come.
What's he say?
I don't know, but he seems to be saying it rather well.
Your first wartime speech.
Broadcast to the nation and the world.
This great time of crisis.
However this turns out, I don't know how to thank him.
Bertie, you're the bravest man I know.
I intend to be a very good queen, to a very great king.
Forget everything else and just say it to me.
All right, so Best Picture winner, The King's Speech. You had not seen before. I saw it 10 years ago. It's the only time I watched it. I like this movie. I think this is a heartwarming story. It's like any quote unquote true story that's built for Oscar bait, where it's this like uplifting narrative. I mean, 127 hours is a little bit different, I think, because the subject matter, for lack of a better term, is like pretty gnarly. Whereas this is, just a period piece about a British monarch and his struggles with speech impediment. I don't necessarily... This could be a tough movie for me to criticize because I don't necessarily have a lot of negative things to say about it, nor do I have a ton of glowing things. So I'm curious how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty vanilla, right? It's like,
yeah,
the cast is amazing. You got Colin Firth, Jeffrey Rush, Helena Bonham Carter. I hope I pronounced all their names correctly.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's extremely well acted. It's extremely well written. Colin Firth, we talked about this before we started recording, and you brought up the fact that he was very deserving of his Oscar, and 100%.
Right.
Like to be able to act with a stutter like that, or what do they call it? A stammer, seems extremely difficult. Like I couldn't act like I have some sort of stammer like that, like the way he did. And yeah, I mean, I love Actually, like everyone else on the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible movie to watch. What she's in. Did you get that? What I just said? Love Actually.
Yeah.
The movie.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't react, so. It was a bad joke. Sorry. Anyway, I love Colin Firth. I think he's a great actor. Yeah, I think Colin Firth is a great actor, and I think he deserves this Oscar for Best Actor, 100%. Did I think it was the best movie of that year? Absolutely not. But again, like you were just saying, it's Oscar bait. It's, and I was saying it's a very vanilla, like perfect flavor of Oscar. Everything's there for it to just bring in the awards, and it is a good story. It's cool that it's like I didn't know about his speech impediment and how much his like speech meant to the country at the time, and like the fact that like Hitler was on the march and they're about to go to war with Germany, and like, I'm not like, even though I minored in history, it doesn't really mean I know history very well. So
you have a minor knowledge of history.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know all these little tidbits about that
King
place
George
and time,
VI.
so. Yeah, so I mean, and then like his daughter Elizabeth, which we all know, like Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah,
my daughter is named Elizabeth, so that's pretty cool, I guess.
So your daughter's going to be a queen, apparently, is what you're saying?
Maybe, I don't know, but
she can be whatever she wants to be.
Exactly. Yeah, she can be queen if she wants to be a queen. But I found the movie incredibly enjoyable to watch. Helena Bonham Carter is like one of my favorite actresses ever. I think she's great. She's great in everything.
Yeah.
She could be in a total pile of dog shit, and I'll watch her because I think she's lovely. Jeffrey Rush, I mean, like, come on. Like, again, like another very likable actor. That's it. I mean, that's
good score on this movie too. I feel like, in terms of the way that the kind of like orchestral sounds propel you through so many of the speech sequences, and kind of it's almost impressive how they can make a simple speech feel kind of like an action sequence almost, and just it's obviously a climactic moment for the movie. I think this movie does a really good job of portraying that stateliness that we associate with British culture. You have a lot of moments of, heightened emotions in which the characters are often trying to conceal that emotion. One of my moments that I love a lot is from Helena Bonham Carter, when her husband delivers his wartime speech and is successful and gets through it without stammering, and she's very stoic, but you just see that like very faint tear coming down her cheek. And it's a quiet moment that conveys the magnitude of how emotional it is for the two of them, for that family to finally overcome this, this hindrance that he's been dealing with his whole life. And it does it without playing to some cheesy boo-hoo hyper emotional reaction. Like it's very understated, and you can feel the weight of it without the movie necessarily making a big deal about it, which I really appreciate about the ending.
Yeah, and so there's a moment in the film too when he first meets the doctor, quote unquote doctor, but he's not really a doctor, but the speech therapist or whatever you want to call him, that Jeffrey Rush plays.
Right.
You remember he puts headphones on him and plays music, and then he says the very classic Shakespearean monologue, "To be or not to be." That's Shakespeare, right?
Yep.
To be or not to be. That is the question, blah, 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 blah. And he's able to read all that off without him knowing that he sounded actually really good. And then he records it on a record and gives him the record, and he listens to it later. And he realizes oh, wow, he actually sounded really wonderful. So I'm thinking, during the pivotal point in the end of the movie where he makes that huge speech, why didn't they just put some headphones on him and play some music so he could make this incredible speech? Or was that an actual thing? Was that a thing? I don't know. Why didn't they do that?
I don't know if I could answer that, but I mean,
it's a hypothetical question, I guess.
I think part of the idea was for him to
overcome it.
Yeah,
of course,
get through his impediments.
Otherwise, there would not be an Oscar. So
right.
But I'm just wondering if that was actually if they just put that in the movie, because I don't know. I'm not really good at fact checking before we
record.
Yeah, I'm a Democrat in nature, and I listen to facts in real life, but sometimes when it comes to movies, I ignore facts and I just say
not
shit.
Always check in. Well, I'll say I don't know if it's a fact, but the movie put it in text at the end. It's one of my favorite lines for movies like this, where it ends in a title card that says, "These two characters remain friends for the rest of their lives."
Yeah.
I just really enjoy lines like that.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'd like to imagine they were friends for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Because they had a nice relationship on screen, so it's good to see.
I think the scene where they go to, I'm gonna stop saying Jeffrey Rush and say the actual name of the character. When they go to
it's Lionel. I forget the
Lionel's
last name.
house. Okay.
Yeah, so, Lionel Logue.
When they go to Lionel's house, and the king and queen and Helena Bonham Carter's sitting there on the table and just helping herself to tea and crumpets or whatever, and then Lionel's wife walks in and she's like, "Oh my God, Your Majesty," and Lionel's in the other room with the king, and he's afraid to confront his wife about all this, which is kind of ridiculous. You're like, come on, man, what are you afraid of, man? You got the fucking the royal majesty in your home. Why is this this should be a great surprise for your wife? Is she gonna beat you later because you lied to her about this? I don't understand why he was so afraid of his wife. I thought that was really funny, but also like that whole scene is just very charming and touching.
Yeah, it is. I don't quite get why he's so afraid to be
it was weird.
I've been working with the king this entire time.
Yeah, he was like hiding. Like it was that didn't make that was also come on. That's
like remember when we had that nice china and you said we're saving it for in case royalty ever comes over. Like this is that time.
Yeah,
break it out, sweetie. We got the king and queen.
Yeah, I do feel like their relationship was a little weird.
It's a little weird.
I didn't really get what was going on there.
I mean, this is a. I hadn't looked this up before, but that this is a great score makes complete sense. It's Alexandre Desplat, who's one of the more prominent composers of the past 5 years or so. I'm pretty positive he won an Oscar within the last couple of years. I think for Shape of Water would be the film that he won for. He won for Shape of Water and for Grand Budapest Hotel. So yeah, great composer.
Wow. Yeah.
But
wow. Yeah, 2010, man. Some really impressive scores, musical scores.
For sure. It's a great year in general. And I don't think I obviously would not have selected King's Speech as Best Picture, but King's Peach. It's the Georgia version of this story. I wouldn't have picked this for Best Picture, but I definitely, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it winning, I guess, because I don't think it's a bad movie. There's been some choices that the Academy makes that are just dumbfounding to me, and this is, I could see why they picked it. It's good for what they typically go for.
Yeah, and I do love because we're both fans of the rewatchables, and we'll mention them
on
our show forever. But I do love how they kind of do the whole, if you were to revote now, or if you were to talk about who should win the Oscar now after all these years, what would you choose? And
yeah, the revisionist.
That was that was the obvious choice at the time, right? But no, now you're like, fuck no, are you crazy?
Yeah, what held up the best?
It's insane. Really, when you think about it, you think about the movies we've covered, like Black Swan, Social Network, 127 Hours we just talked about.
I think you ask anybody now about the Social Network, they're like, oh yeah, like the Zuckerberg movie, what a classic. And you ask people about the King's Speech, they're probably going to say, what's that about again?
I think I could even argue for the other guys.
The other guys
over this to be Best Picture, because I don't know, man.
I've actually been updating. I've been updating my list as we've gone along in terms of 2010 movies.
Yeah.
I have this 15th. So it's not bad. It's not super low, not super high either. I pretty much put
you have King's Speech 15th ranked?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean it wouldn't have been on my radar before I saw it, but now that I've seen it, I don't know. I guess I have to go. Is that something we're gonna do at the end of the year? Is go through our top?
What I don't want to rank them again, but I do kind of want to do what you just said, which is go through the categories and pick a winner for the Oscar categories.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would be interesting to go off from where we started in the beginning of this, when the first episode where we talked about our favorite films, and I feel like we ranked them a little bit, right?
We ranked our top 5 at the time,
and without going back, and because I don't really remember how I ranked it. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't necessarily remember what I picked as my number one or like my number 3 or 2 or whatever. So it'd be interesting to
see,
rank again after rewatching everything. And
I'd be curious yours. I don't think it would be incredibly interesting for me because I don't think it's changed all that much from back, and that's simply because my 5 favorites from this year are just like so ingrained in terms of like my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
It's like Inception, Social Network, Scott Pilgrim, Toy Story, and Black Swan. Like those 5 movies are just kind of ingrained for me, and I don't imagine it would have changed very much. But there's certainly like other movies that have come along. Like I think The Town is a movie that probably before we did this would have been lower, but then after revisiting it, I would have bumped it up. And The Kids Are All Right is a movie that we watched earlier that I hadn't seen before that I liked a lot. So those are a couple examples. But yeah, we actually have 3 movies we're going to do next month to finish things off, and 2 of them I've not seen before. So it's True Grit and Tron Legacy. So that'll be good to finish off the list with those.
Oh man. Yeah, and Tron Legacy is one of those that to me is like so under the radar. And I rewatched that earlier in the year. Whenever I got Disney Plus, I was like, oh man,
gotta watch
Tron
it.
Legacy's on here.
Do you have to see Tron?
No, absolutely not. No, I have still not seen the original Tron. You know,
I won't worry about it then. Is Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy?
Fuck yeah, he is, dude. Yes.
So it's gonna be a little back-to-back Bridges then with True Grit and that. Double the Bridges.
Yeah, and I'm pumped to watch True Grit again because at the time I was super into not only Westerns. It couldn't have been too much before 2010, but I loved 3:10 to Yuma.
Right.
That remake with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. Such a good movie, such a good remake. I don't think anyone ever really saw the original 3:10 to Yuma, so. And then yeah, True Grit was kind of like along the same lines. Like, yeah, I guess the original starred John Wayne, but I mean, we all knew that the Coen Brothers version with Jeff Bridges was going to be way better.
Knock it out of the park.
Yeah, and it's fucking awesome.
I'm excited. I love the Coen Brothers, but there's quite a few of their movies I've not seen, so I want to.
You have not seen that one?
No, I've not seen it.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's a lot of great Coen movies that I've not seen before. Like I never saw Barton Fink. I never saw Raising Arizona or Miller's Crossing.
Woo.
So there's a lot of them for them that I still need to watch. I've seen the big ones like Fargo and Big Lebowski, No Country, but yeah, they're one that I definitely need to watch a few more of.
Kat and I recently she had never seen Raising Arizona. And I had seen it when I was, much younger. But, man, that was such a fun movie to watch. We also watched Blood Simple.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which was like their very first original film, which I had never seen.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome. But then, dude, Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink, yeah, you got to watch those as soon as possible.
I will. They're one of those filmmakers where, like I said earlier this year, where I went through Spielberg and then I went through Fincher. I'm going to go through them at some point. I just got super busy in November. But pretty soon, I'm going to be working on a 2011 list for us, which is exciting to move forward. That's a year that I'm kind of looking forward to because it's not as top loaded as 2010 is in terms of just like the all-time classics, but there is some really great stuff.
Yeah, and I haven't even looked ahead, so I can only imagine And I've always been into movies, so I know that there's some good stuff there. And next month I'm really excited for it because I've never seen what is it, the boxing movie? What is it?
The Fighter.
The Fighter.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that I always wanted to see it, and I never did.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, because that's the thing is I know it's good. I know it's really good, and I know it's one of those movies that I'll really like. It's kind of the opposite of King's Speech. King's Speech, I was like, I know it's going to be a good movie, but I don't really want to watch it. But The Fighter has always been one of those movies where like I know it's a good movie, and I know when I watch it that I'm really going to enjoy it. So that one I'm super pumped about. So we got like, True Grit, which I loved at the time and I still love to this day. It's an adorable movie. Tron Legacy, which is just like, again, I have another personal experience. I saw that in the theater, like 3D, which I hated at the time. I hated 3D, but I still saw 3D and it was awesome. But then, Fighter, which I've never seen and I've always wanted to, and I've just I don't know. I never took the time to see it. So this has all been just like that rock that trapped Aaron Ralston's hand into the canyon. We've all been. It's been coming to this moment in my life to watch The Fighter in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic.
That's a wild metaphor there, but I'll run with it.
I've had a daughter. And now, finally,
it's asteroid
of
this.
The Fighter it's hitting me, and it's finally happening, and it's all led to this beautiful moment in time.
Well, I mean, that's going to do it for November. We've been talking about here, we have great stuff in December to look forward to. It's going to be jam-packed. We're going to talk about those movies and do a bit of a year in review, or maybe we'll do it in January. We'll figure it out, because January might be kind of boring otherwise. But
I don't know.
We'll see. And that's going to do it for now. And we will see you next time to wrap up 2010. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great holiday if you're listening to this in the lead up to the holidays. And we'll see you next time.
Wear a mask.
Elsewhere on We Made This. Frame to frame.
Just that there's certain ways that Sean Connery delivered lines in the film that really sort of stuck with me. So when the room is on fire and they're tied up in the Nazis and they go into the fireplace and it spins around, and he just says, "Our situation has not improved." Just his delivery on that line is so dry and droll.
I love it when he goes, I find that if I just sit down, and then he sits in the seat, and then the seat goes, the solution presents itself. And he's already...
Cerebral Jukebox.
I had to sort of stop what I was doing and get to it, find out who it was, and see what else she'd done and find out a little bit more about her as well. And she's incredible. I'm totally in love with her now as well.
I mean, just from going off what we're talking about there, it's sort of in her gap year, she learned how to arrange Mediterranean music and then went off and studied both Spanish medieval history and art in a gap year.
Yeah.
When you're not really supposed to be doing anything.
That's it, yeah, exactly. That's just nuts, isn't it?
Life's milestones.
What song did you pick as your first dance?
Oh.
We have...
I know it.
Yeah, you go ahead.
It's the song Good Day.
Oh, is that our first dance?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yes.
Not our official first dance.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
She's
Not
wrong.
The
Jukebox song.
Yep.
No.
It's the song Good Day
No.
by Jukebox the Ghost.
That's the first on the album, but that wasn't our first dance. You wrote a song for our first dance.
Oh, that's right, I did.
Amazing.
I did write a song.
You surprised me.
That's right, I did. I love that I
album,
forgot that.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.